The Cambridge IGCSE exam is a popular choice for students studying English as a second language at the end of secondary school. And there has been some fantastic feedback from viewers since our last tutorial, which focused on reading exercise 1. So in this video, we're doing a complete tutorial on reading exercise 2 using the same paper to help you get the highest possible marks in your final exams. Hey, it's Tariq Hamoud, and I'm passionate about teaching and learning and supporting students to excel in their final exams. If you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and all the links that we mention here in the video you can find in the box below. So let's get started. Okay, so as mentioned right at the beginning of the video, we're going to be using the same exam paper that we used in the previous tutorial for exercise 1. However, this time we're going to focus on exercise 2. Again, if you are studying or you choose to enter for the core paper, you can still follow what we do on this extended paper. Now, as most of you already know, in exercise 2, you'll be provided with 4 different paragraphs. In the core paper, you will only receive 3 different paragraphs. And another difference is you will see that with questions A through to J for the extended, if you do the core paper again, you will only have to do A through to H simply because you only have 3 different paragraphs to choose from at the top. So the best way to approach exercise 2 is via a 4-step process. Step 1 is to skim the text. Step 2 is to go into the questions and highlight the keywords. Step 3 is then to start brainstorming synonyms for those keywords. And step 4 is to go back into the text and try to identify which parts of the text actually answers the questions. So for part 1, skimming the text, what does it actually mean? Skimming a text, when I sit with students and I go over it with them, I always say, read the first sentence of every paragraph. Just to give you an idea of what the text is about. You're reading a text, you have no idea what the text is about before you've skimmed the text. Is it about education, football, technology, space? You don't really know until you've skimmed the text. Just give yourself a good idea of what the text is about, so let's give it a go. Okay, now we've got an idea as to what the text is about. The next step is to go into the questions and read the question and highlight the keywords, the most important words that pop out to us. And the reason for that is it prepares you for the text, or it prepares you for what you're looking for in the text itself. It focuses your reading. So, which person gives a reason for not participating in competitions? So for me, the most important words in this question here, I would say, are not participating in competitions. Okay, who gives a reason for not participating in competitions? Okay, so I found the answer here. The key question, or the key words in the question rather, were reasons for not participating in the competition. And we have here that Patricia fell and damaged her shoulder, so she didn't enter anything. Okay, she didn't enter anything. And you can see again, as we mentioned earlier on, that the synonyms are used, okay, or words of a similar meaning. So participating wasn't used in the text. What was used in the text was didn't enter, and the competition actually wasn't mentioned at all. It mentioned anything. But if we read back, then we know that that was actually referring to competitions, and it was actually used here at the top. So now all we're going to do is repeat that same process for the rest of the questions. It is worth bearing in mind, however, that step 1, which was to skim the actual text itself in its entirety, is not required after you've done it the first time. Once you've skimmed the text, you've achieved the purpose of getting a general idea of what the text is about. From this point onwards, what you're going to do is step 2 to step 4. You're going to highlight the keywords, brainstorm synonyms, and then look for the answer in the text. Okay, I'd like to just draw your attention to this point of the exercise, and that is that the answers to the first three questions were not in sequence. They were BDA. Now, that's important to just bear in mind, because as you would have seen in the previous tutorial, in exercise 1, the answers are in sequence. They follow throughout the whole text. However, with exercise 2, which is what we're doing today, the answers tend to be scattered around the text itself. So it's very important that you comb through the text every single time. Now, I know that many of you might be thinking, does that mean I have to read the text 9 times because there are 9 different questions? No, it doesn't mean that you have to read the entire text 9 times. And the next question is a perfect example of this. After you've read the text 2 or 3 times, you've probably got a good idea as to where some of the answers are already. Okay, so here's a good example of that right now. 10D, which person explains that she wasn't put off doing an activity by someone else's bad experience? Just quickly highlight the keywords. Wasn't put off by someone else's bad experience. So just thinking of synonyms, if you're put off by something, you're demotivated or you're discouraged. Bad experiences, perhaps there was an injury, or perhaps the person didn't do very well in a competition or in a contest. Now, this time, I'm not going to go right to the beginning of the actual text, because I do know that I've read the text now 3 times, or at least the beginning of the text 3 times, and I'm quite certain that nothing was mentioned in A or B about someone not being put off by another person's bad experience. So I'm going to jump into C. I think it could be in C or in D. And there you have it. My sister did cross-country running at school and didn't like it because she always came last. I decided to have a go. So her bad experience was that she was always coming last, but she decided to have a go. She wasn't put off. Now, I was only able to make that guess and think, okay, it's in C or D because I've read it so many times. But the point here is that you will get faster and faster the more questions that you complete. Okay, so let's see how our answers match up with the mark scheme. Now it's time for my top 3 tips on the common mistakes that students make in this section of the exam. So a common mistake that I notice with students in this part of the exam is that they don't pay attention to all of the keywords in the question itself. So I'm going to give you an example from question F. The keywords that we identified were learning from watching other people. Now, the answer I highlighted was from B, because in B it says they were good role models. Now, a role model, as you may know already, is someone who we look up to, someone that we can learn from. However, if you come down to the last paragraph, the very last line, many students from my experience would fall into the trap of highlighting this last line here where it says, it makes it really fun to watch. There are loads of videos online of people doing parkour in incredible places. So many students would say, oh, okay, you can watch people videos online. The answer is definitely D. But it's not, because if we come back to the question, it says watching people, but another key word was learning from them. And there's nothing mentioned in this line here about learning from the people. It just says that you can watch people online. So it's very important that we watch out for the keyword, all of the keywords in the actual question itself. Okay, so if you go to the Cambridge website, you will be able to find a document that looks something like this, the Example Candidate Responses booklet. Now, in that booklet, you will be able to find the reports from the examiners. After marking hundreds and thousands of papers, they get together and they look at the common themes or the common mistakes that students have made. And 2 things were highlighted in regards to exercise 2. Number one, which might sound quite obvious, many candidates didn't actually write their answers on the dotted lines that are provided. Make sure you write your answer in the space provided. Otherwise, you run the risk of the examiner not actually accepting your response. Now, the second thing that the examiners have mentioned is that candidates tend to try to scribble out the answers when they want to change their mind. Now, it's fine. It's perfectly natural for many students when completing the exam to want to change the answers. What we shouldn't be doing, however, is trying to scribble out the old answer and write the new answer over the old answers. If you make a mistake or you decide to change your answer, simply put a line through your old answer and write your final response next to it so it's very clear. Do not scribble out the old answers and try to write over them, because it just confuses the examiners. And like I said, they mark hundreds, thousands of papers, and they don't have time to sit there and decide, is that a B, is it a C? Now that you've got reading exercise 2 sorted, it's time to turn your attention to the next part of the exam paper. Check out the links to the videos on the screen to see how you can do this with us. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you in the next one.